Okay, in this video, I want to talk about the content of Locke's defense of some liberal principles in the Second Treatise of Government. And the key principles I'm going to focus in on are how he grounds the authority of government in the consent of the people, and how he provides justification for resisting tyrants. So we're going to look at this in three main points. First of all, we're going to look at his view of the state of nature. And under this heading, we're going to look at, Locke's going to examine the question, what would it be like if we had no government? That's what he means by the state of nature. The second main point we're going to look at is about political society. For what purpose and how do we form a government? And then finally, tyranny and resistance. When and why can we resist the government? Let me pull all of his thoughts together, and here's how I would boil down the big picture argument that he's putting forward here in the second treatise. First of all, I think he's arguing that government is legitimate only if the subjects of that government have consented to it. Now, when I say legitimate, what I mean is a government only deserves our obedience, only morally obligates us to follow it if the subjects themselves have consented to it. Secondly, the subjects have consented to a government only on condition and for the purpose that that government preserve their life and liberty. That's the whole reason they consent to form a government. Furthermore, a government only preserves the lives and liberties of its subjects and the property of its subjects only if that government rules by law rather than through the arbitrary decisions, the arbitrary will of government officials. It has to be law-bound, lawful. Now, you pull all those three premises together, and here's what they imply. They imply that a government is legitimate only if it rules by law rather than through the arbitrary decisions, the arbitrary will of the rulers. And the flip side of that, to turn it around, is if government oversteps the law, the bounds of law, it is no longer a legitimate government. That is, it no longer morally deserves our obedience. And at that point, resistance to the government is morally justified. All right, that's the really big picture. Let's drop into the details of how Locke gets there, starting with his discussion of the state of nature. Now remember, the state of nature is a condition that we're in if we are not a member of any political community. That is, if we're not under any shared government. So in that condition, Locke says, even without and apart from any government, well, we're free people. And by that he means we are not subject to the will of other humans. We don't have to wait for the permission or approval of anybody else. We're not under any authority. And that means that we're all equal, at least as far as political power goes. Nobody has any more legal authority than others. We're not, because nobody's under anybody else. Now, this doesn't leave us in a state of lawlessness altogether. Although we're not under any civil laws, we're still under what Locke calls the law of nature. That is, an objective, moral, normative law that we're all obligated to follow. And Locke describes the content of this law in slightly different ways throughout his works, but he basically means here, his basic idea is that we are obligated to preserve the life and the property of ourselves and of others, or at least not to do anything to harm the life and property of others. Now, because we're in the state of nature and there is no governing authority, that also means there's no police and there's no court systems to protect you from the assaults of others or to punish people who do wrong to each other. And Locke thinks that, therefore, each and every one of us individually, if we're in the state of nature, has the right to not only defend ourselves and to defend other innocent people who are under attack, but also, after those attacks are even over, we have the right to judge and punish violations of the law of nature. So if you assault somebody else, I have the right to come alongside as a third party and say, you know what? You totally did wrong. You broke the law of nature, and I'm going to punish you uh, to whatever degree, even up to the point of executing the death penalty on you. I have the right to kill you as a punishment for your wrongs against other people. So these are crucial rights that we have in the state of nature. Now, there's a lot of important questions we could ask here, such as, do you believe that there is a law of nature, and how can we go about knowing it? These are all very good, important questions. Now, here's a question. When exactly do I have a right to exercise violence against someone else in the state of nature, either in defense or in punishment? And Locke says you have a right to destroy anybody who threatens you, anybody who threatens you with destruction. And here's a really important thing. That threat doesn't just begin when someone actually assaults you. He says you're under a threat whenever a person indicates that they intend to attack you in that way. So even evidence of intent gives you justification for a defensive and even preemptive attack. He says a state of enmity and destruction, a state of war, occurs when someone declares by word or by action, not just kind of a passionate and hasty, I'm going to kill you or something like that, which people might say without seriously intending it and like in a verbal dispute, but when they indicate by their words or actions a sedate, settled design upon another man's life. He thinks at that point, you've got a right to attack them defensively. Now, you're in a state of war with someone. That is, you're in a state in which you permissibly can attack them, not only when they indicate that they intend to attack you, but also when they indicate that they intend to enslave you. Intended enslavement also provides grounds for defensive violence. Now, by enslavement, he means someone getting you under their power such that they can treat you however they will. That is, you are under their arbitrary command. You are subject to their arbitrary decisions. Anytime that you are the under the arbitrary will of somebody else, you are their slave. Now, Locke says the reason why that justifies defensive violence is because once someone's got you under their power, they can do whatever they want with you. And that means like even your life is vulnerable to them. So enslavement is tantamount to attack, says Locke. And this is going to be extremely important when it comes to his theory of resistance to the government. But so far, we're only talking about how things stand when there is no government, when we are in a state of nature. These are the rules that apply. Which leads us to our next question. Why would anyone leave the state of nature? Why would anyone want to put themselves under the authority of a government when they are free of it?